Hey guys, the Supergirl trailer is finally out, and in today's video we're going to analyze it frame by frame and talk a lot about the characters and the scenes. We'll also try to see the differences between the comic book story and the movie and theorize a lot about the future of Supergirl in the DCU. So without further delay, let's get to the video. Well, folks, first I'm going to talk about my first impressions of the trailer, what I thought of it, and then we'll analyze every scene from the trailer, okay? And to me, it was a nice trailer. It was a safe trailer to show the blockbuster with action scenes that's fun and a big adventure. I'm curious to see what people will say about the cinematography, because it's different from the comic. It's something more realistic, but that was already to be expected. Of course, they were going to clean up the comic look. That said, my impression of this trailer stayed the same. I think the cinematography is actually better than Superman's movie. For example, there's that action scene where everything is wide open and Supergirl keeps pulling on a cable to hit the guys. That scene I thought was very good and very beautiful, and this movie isn't a film that cost $200 million. You have to take that into account. I don't know. I was surprised compared to what I myself was expecting. As for the story, really, it's the story from the comic that with them modifying some things, creating more set pieces, to have action scenes and cutting down on some things. And James Gunn said the comic has 5 acts and the movie will have 3. Obviously, they're going to make some changes. It won't be just like the comic, but the story is very faithful. There's this part from Krypton, the Argo City part, which is basically the same. It's even strange because there's that atmosphere that Zor-El creates, but it doesn't look like they're drifting in space. It looks like they're on the planet itself. About Millie Alcock here as Supergirl, you can clearly see what her character arc idea is. She's the party girl, the power girl, because she has this whole thing in her past that makes her turn to drinking to somehow escape what happened, the memories and everything else. And the comic does that very well. And I think the movie even has the chance to enhance her entire arc, because this Supergirl is a little more immature, has a lot more chances to have an even more powerful journey along with Ruthie. Now, there's something that bothered me a lot in the trailer, which is Krem's look. Yeah, Krem is this guy here, and I found his look really disappointing. Like, look at this. He's kind of bald with a bunch of stuff on his face. Honestly, I was expecting a look more faithful to the one he has in the comic. Maybe something happens to him in the movie that gives him this appearance, and Krem was already a concern of mine beforehand, and now seeing his look, my concern has increased even more. And it's not just the look, it's the narrative issue too, but we'll talk more about that later in the video. Then we have Lobo. Yes, that one turned out awesome. Anyway, good trailer. I like the cinematography. The direction is good. Krypton/Argo City there. Let's take a closer look. I think this teaser trailer is better than the Superman one. Honestly, it shows more adventure. The cinematography is more to my liking. Personally, I think this trailer is much more interesting. Maybe this trailer isn't as exciting because the Superman trailer was the first trailer of the DCU. We had very high expectations. And I also wanted to talk a bit about the chosen music. I completely understand why they chose it, because it relates to Supergirl, but at the same time, it's not a super, hyper, mega exciting song, since the trailer has this vibe that wants to convey a James Gunn vibe, even though the team is completely different. And you know what the problem with this song is? It's that I think James Gunn wouldn't be so obvious choosing this song, you know? I think he would have picked a much better, more exciting song. I understand people who don't like the music because it's not a song that blows up and gets you hyped, you know? And maybe the trailer wants to convey that vibe and it can't. Maybe the music holds it back a bit. Anyway, I get people who don't like the music. I completely understand. Well, now let's go to our trailer analysis. The trailer starts with Krypto sniffing the record player Supergirl has. Apparently she lives in that trailer. Everything indicates it's on Earth because there's a Daily Planet newspaper with Superman's picture. This movie will probably take place after the events of the Superman movie. If you look at the newspaper, there's also a headline saying that Supergirl saves a cat, the classic Superman trope, but with Supergirl. Kara wakes up hungover, wearing glasses to hide it, and jokes that Krypto managed to pee on the newspaper. In the next scene, we see Supergirl waiting at what looks like a bus stop for a spaceship. It's the space bus, somewhat similar to the one in the comic, but not exactly the same. In the comic, she doesn't get on the bus from a stop. We already see her on the bus with Ruthie, and here it's different because Ruthie isn't with her. But it's important to say there's a cover of the second issue of the comic Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, where she's waiting for a bus, so it's not something they pulled out of nowhere. In the next scene, it's Kara living life to the fullest, going to an alien bar, stealing a guy's drink, and it's clear she's celebrating her 23rd birthday. She's 21 in the comics. I don't know why they changed it, but it doesn't really matter. We then see she's very happy, but no, deep down she's a wreck. Apparently, this bar will function as the bar before the adventure begins, the same bar we see her in during the first issue of the comic. Kara has this line saying, "It's not very hard to beat the other years of her life," and all of this is meant to show she has something unresolved in her past, something that doesn't let her live fully. In the next scene, we possibly have a city of Krypton, Argo City, and this beam that shoots out and creates some kind of protection shield, that's in the comic. It happens when planet Krypton explodes, but Argo City survives drifting in space, and Zor-El is the one who creates this shield technology. Now, in the movie, it looks a bit different because they don't seem to be drifting in space, and if you pay attention, there's an earthquake happening around the city they're sealing off. I think they will change it so that all of this happens before Krypton explodes, and I think Brainiac will be more or less involved in what's going to happen. Besides that, I think they'll change the city, so it won't be Argo City but Kandor, and I think the entire city will survive with Brainiac taking the city and bringing it to his skull ship. Only Kara might not know any of this because she will have left the planet before it all happens. This is the big change I think might happen in the movie. Next, we get a small shot of Ruthie, which they intercut in the middle of the whole Krypton sequence. Then we have this scene of Kara walking all in white, carrying what seems to be a coffin, possibly a funeral. If it's like the comic, they're carrying Kara's mother, Allura, who dies because the floating city in space becomes toxic and Kryptonians can't survive there very long, and many of them end up dying. Meanwhile, while we see these scenes, Kara is talking to Ruthie, and she has a line that comes from the comic where she says, "The Kryptonians did not die all in one day. The gods are not so kind." And this line in the comic is very good, and thankfully they kept it in the movie. The next scene is Kara screaming in space. In the comic, there's a scene where she flies to the sun and screams. Maybe it's something like that. She flies into space to scream where no one can hear her. Then we see the space bus landing on a planet. In the comic, they stop on several planets, and Kara uses the bus because she's weakened and because she can't take Ruthie through space. Continuing, Kara is walking through a foggy, smoke-filled place, and it seems like a planet hideout for several mercenaries where they stop to go to a bar, get a mission, you know? In the next scene, we see several mercenaries pointing weapons at Supergirl and Ruthie. I like that there's an alien there that looks like Greedo from Star Wars. As for these mercenaries, maybe these are the pirates that Krem allies himself with, or maybe they're completely random mercenaries. Supergirl doesn't get intimidated by the mercenaries. She even says, hey, this won't end well for them. And we get several action scenes. There's this guy who attacks her against a wall, and she dodges. And the way she counters the attack is really cool. Then we have a guy walking through fire who is revealed to be Krem. Honestly, I really didn't like Krem's look. It's the biggest negative point of the trailer. The look didn't turn out good. It looks generic. The actor, when he was cast, had a picture looking exactly like Krem from the comic. And then he becomes this Krem here, totally different from the comics. And I think they changed him because they were afraid the comic look wouldn't be threatening enough. So they put a bunch of rocks on his head and made him bald. Or maybe something happens to him during the movie that makes him look like this. But sincerely, the look is not good. It's also important to say the comic look isn't amazing either. Speaking of Krem as a villain, he's the most concerning point because in the comic, he is the weakest part. He's mostly there to be an antagonist for the protagonists to overcome. In the movie, he needs to have much more than in the comic, and I don't know if they'll manage that. Krem, to me, is definitely the hardest point of the film. We need to see to judge, but it's a concern. The look isn't good, and they didn't show much of him in the trailer, which is already a little concerning. Then we have this scene from the comic, and we see the detail on Ruthie's sword, which really has that little golden detail. And it's cool that they put this space bus scene that's in the comic. We have more scenes of them escaping from the mercenaries, and I think this will be a big scene. And note that for much of the trailer, she's not wearing the costume, and apparently throughout the movie, she'll wear it very little. There's this dialogue where Supergirl says that only 2 people have powers and all. Obviously, she's talking about Kryptonians, and I was thinking a bit, if they're putting this line there so that in the future they can say there are some Kryptonians still alive, specifically with Brainiac, I thought the scene where the ship explodes was really good. And then we have this scene where Krypto is hurt meaning they're going to do something with Crypto, just like what happens in the comic where he gets shot by Krem's arrow. I don't know if they'd go that far since it's an arrow hitting a dog, but this will carry into the story, and it's an important point. In this scene here, if you look to the left, the sky is green, and I think this is that planet Supergirl stays in the comic, where the sun is green, and it ends up working like kryptonite for her. And finally, my man, Jason Momoa as Lobo. But the scene was too quick, and we couldn't see the look very well. But we can be 100% sure it's Lobo, and he's got a little cigar, and he looks awesome. Man, Lobo is going to be sick. But it's also important to say that I don't know how important he'll be to the story. He's in that setting with the escape from the mercenaries. Will he only appear in that scene? That's hard to say, but I don't think he'll be as important as people want him to be. Then Ruthie says, "What is Superman like?" And Supergirl says, "Superman sees the good in everyone, but she sees the truth in people." In the comic, we see differences in Supergirl's personality, like she lets a guy be executed by the people and doesn't interfere. So, like, she may not want to kill people, but she doesn't go out of her way to stop it either. And finally, when she says she sees the truth, we see her in the suit and without the coat. I'm thinking maybe she only puts on the suit when she makes peace with her own past, when we get her catharsis. Maybe we only get the suit from halfway through to the end. And this scene where she's using the cable to spin and defeat several goons is very good. And I think this is the scene that makes it clear that this movie is visually more interesting than Superman, much more actually. And finally, we get the movie logo. Well, after watching the trailer, I think the story is very tight. It has a good arc for Supergirl. Ruthie will be that character. People will fully understand her motivation to want revenge on Krem. The journey seems to be very interesting. The direction is good. The cinematography is good. I think the big question mark is Krem. They didn't show much of him, and he's the antagonist from the comic, and I don't know if he's a good enough villain for a movie. What they do with Krem, if they'll manage to turn him into a good villain, is what we need to pay more attention to. The journey of the protagonist, I'm perfectly fine with it. I think it's very hard for it to go wrong. And the action scenes look very interesting. Anyway, I think it was a good teaser trailer, and I really hope it increases people's hype. This year, I'm more fascinated because last year, we had the Superman trailer that got astronomical views, but the movie ended up making less at the box office than expected. Unfortunately, trailer views are one thing. People being willing to go to the movies is another. Regardless, the Supergirl trailer is gaining good traction. People are excited and sharing. Supergirl really has a lot of fans, and we hope all of that carries over to when people go to the theater. But guys, this is our trailer analysis. Please comment below, and don't forget to click the like button and subscribe for more content like this. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.